Hello everybody, how are you all today? Are you well? I certainly hope so. I'm feeling really excited to catch up with you today, but I've still got this blinking cold. It's so annoying. I'm just going to have a bit more of my tea. I can't seem to shake it off. Never mind, it's not going to kill me, it's just stopping me in my tracks a little bit. But I'm so excited to catch up with you guys today because I think I finalised my plan for the garden for next year. I think I finalised it, I'm not sure. No, I'm pretty sure. So loads of you have been asking about how do I plan it, what are my plans for next year, specifically for next year, but in general, how do I plan my garden? And I know there's a lot of folk who, you know, it's the perfect time of year, isn't it? It's winter, there's much less time in the garden, partly because of the weather and partly just because of the short days. So it is the perfect time to curl up with your seed catalogues, your notebooks, whatever it is you curl up with. Today, I've actually had to come and sit right in front of my south-facing window because even though it's only about midday, it's so dark and grey and rainy. I'm desperately trying to kind of grab some light from out there so we can see what we're up to. So like I say, I think there's a lot of you are probably curling up with your seed catalogues and your scraps of paper and what have you. And I think especially if you're just about to make your first vegetable garden, or if last year was your first one, it can all seem a little bit daunting. You know, you have this array of catalogues, millions of varieties for the same vegetable, what have you. So what I would advise, first and foremost, is make a list of the vegetables you like to eat. I know it sounds really stupid and really simple, but what's the point of growing something that you're not going to eat? It just doesn't make sense. So, make the list of veggies you like to eat. Obviously you have to consider how much space you've got. So, you know, potatoes take up quite a lot of space. If you really love your potatoes, go for it, because honestly there's nothing that tastes as gorgeous as a spud that's just been dug up and either boiled really quickly if it's one of your new potatoes, or shoved in the embers of the fire if it's one of your main crop potatoes for a baked spud. So when I first got my plot, I thought about all the things I like to eat, but another consideration for me to begin with was what's really expensive in the shops to buy organically, because I'm totally organic. I really hope most of you are too. So one of the reasons, for instance, I'm going to get so sidetracked in talking about all this because I've got so many ideas pinging around my head. I've got a little piece of paper in my hand because I wanted to remember all the things I wanted to include today. But for example, grapes are one of the most overly chemically nasty chuck at things you can possibly eat. Organic grapes are really expensive, so because of that I just don't eat them, but I really love them, which is why this year, to go on the fence behind the deck, that's why, and hopefully Gary's got one for me, that's why I'm really keen to grow a grapevine, because I will grow it without any nasty chemicals and be able to munch on it to my heart's content if it grows. So think about the veg you want to eat, think about what things are expensive in the shops, and maybe that's the thing to focus on if you've got a really small space. Beyond that, for me, and this is based on the last sort of 3 or 4 years experience in this particular garden, because obviously all soils are different. So what I do now is based on the last 3 or 4 years. So I think about things like what produces prolifically. So do I want to give up a square metre of soil to grow something that's going to produce 1 vegetable or 50 vegetables? It's a no-brainer really, isn't it? Once I've decided that this is something that's prolific, then I'm looking at, does it taste good? Because again, there are so many, for instance, beans, let's take beans. I eat masses of beans because they're a staple part of any vegetarian's diet because they give us so much protein. So beans have a big focus on my plot. Over the years I've tried all sorts, and some of them just don't taste as good as others. I mean, they all taste fine, but some taste better. So if it's got a great taste and it's a prolific cropper, it's kind of going up and up and up in my estimation. And my third consideration for all the things I grow is how am I going to store them? Because I grow for year-round eating. So I don't want to have a garden which through July and August and the beginning of September gives me a massive glut that isn't going to store well, so I have to eat it all there and then for the other 7, 8, 9 months of the year, nothing's going on. So, is it prolific? Does it taste good? Does it store well? And some of those things you're only going to find out by experimenting, by accident. Hopefully, if you're gardening in a communal area, like I do with my allotment, you can ask other folk on your site what's a good grower. Excuse me, I'm still really tickling, a bit hoarse. So you kind of get an idea of what you want to grow and the different varieties. I also, in my plan, I'm considering my rotation so that I'm not using the same soil for the same crops year after year after year. Excuse me. I think this is the end of it. I don't want to use the same soil for the same crops year after year because that crop wanting that specific nutrient is going to exhaust that bit of soil. But also if I get a bit of disease in that bit of soil, after a while it's going to build up and build up and build up. So everything gets moved every year, and I've got a very simple system. All I do is hop a bed each year. So my plan is based on 4 beds, dead simple. I do have that little 5th bed that I finally dug out a couple of months ago. Well, how long ago was it? I think I got it dug out by June, so 5 months ago, 6 months ago. I didn't have any time to put any muck in or compost in because I had plants desperate to go out. But that bed this year is going to get loads more attention because it's going to become an area, a permanent area for herbs. So that's not kind of included in my plan because that's sort of permanent planting, herbs for my tea, for my beauty regime, for a bit of medicinal stuff, for cooking, that sort of stuff. So let's have a look. I've done a big old picture for you all. Hang on a sec. I just want to make sure I'm not missing anything. Yeah, the other thing about in consideration of what I'll do next year. So I've talked about, what do I want to eat? What's going to be prolific? What tastes good? What's going to store well? But also, what seeds have I saved from last year? So, for instance, all the beans, of course, dead easy to save seed from. So, when I'm planning the following year, I'm always thinking about holding some of the produce back to save just for seed. Some of the seed I will have to buy, the brassicas mainly, just because for them to go to flower and seed, by the time they do that, I need that little bit of garden that they're sitting in, so I have to pull them out. If I had a lot more space, like, 3 or 4 plots, I'd have brassicas going to seed. So, okay, you have to picture my plot now. So, when I do the plot tours, I always start at what I call the top end of the garden, which is nearest to the main central path that everybody walks along, where my sign hangs, where my flowers are on the corner. So I call that bed number 1, and then the bed that's back down the path, if you're walking towards my shed, the last bed before the cold frame is bed number 4. So, there's not a huge change this year in terms of varieties, but there is some change in terms of layout and 2 new plants, vegetables to try, which, so I just did a big burp. I'm going to keep them secret for a minute. I'll show you where I'm going to plant them, but what they actually are is a secret for now. All will be revealed in the new year. So, hopefully you're going to be able to see this. Can you see? Let me bring it back here. So, bed one. So, this down here, that represents where I have all the flowers on the corner. So actually, when you look at it on camera, it's more like that. This down here is the path I walk down here towards my shed. This is the main path across the top, so that's where my little plot sign is that you see hanging. So all the flowers across the top as normal. Hopefully a few more this year. I'm actually going to try and dot flowers, even more flowers in all the beds this year. Actually, there'll be loads of self-seeded stuff, so that won't be an issue. So you may recognise the layout from what was this year's bed number 2. No change really, not very much. So I'm going to have my white onions. All this dark brown dotted stuff, that represents the little paths between each section of veg, and there'll be cardboard paths again. The worms love the cardboard, they break it down, they take it down into the soil, brilliant. So, white onions at the bottom here again. Carrots and leeks, yes, I'm going to do leeks again, despite the rust issues on our site. I'm hoping that one of you guys, I can't remember your name, I'm so sorry, but one of you mentioned that wood ash would hopefully help against the rust, and the carrots should like it too. So carrots and leeks there, red onions, slight change. I'm going to swap where they were this year, I'm going to swap them around. So I'm going to put the flint corn right at the top here. So this is south. So when I show you all these pages, this is south, so the sun is here all day. So although they gave, I think the shade was good, I think for the Solaric it might have been a bit too much. So I can always put some netting on the celeriac and celery here to shade them if we get really, really, really hot in the summer. So with the flint corn, I'm going to do the whole row this time instead of just a block here. So I had, this year I grew it 5 in a row and 6 in each row, I think it was. So I'm going to do 3 or 4, but have it the whole way through. And then this little path at the back here is going to be lovely and magical and secret because it'll all be overgrown. But there's no way I'm not having flint corn this year, because as a plant, I loved it. And just before anyone asks, no, I haven't popped any of it yet. I haven't tried to grind any of it yet. It's all hanging in the shed to dry, and although I'm mobilising really, really well, I just think at the moment I don't want to push it. You know, it's only a couple of weeks, 2.5 weeks since surgery. I don't want to push it going down there. I'm thinking in another week or so I might try the walk down there, might try and get on site, but I certainly don't want to be going down there filling up a rucksack of corn to bring it home, because that's going to be extra weight on my knees, and I can't pull the trolley and the crutch at the same time. So as soon as I do anything with the glass gem flint corn, I will let you know and I'll show you. Anyway, digression. So then into bed 2. So again, this looks like this year's bed 3, and it's hop to bed. Slight change, so I'm going to have, this is my vine bed. So something to consider with the 4-bed crop rotation system is to group your families of veg together. So bed number 1, it's mainly the alliums, the onions, leeks. Bed number 2 is my vine bed. So I'm going to have all my tomatoes, and hopefully over here we'll have a little patch of the Rose de Berne, the Plan de Volontiers tomatoes from France. Hopefully they come up. And then, I'm so sorry. This is the other thing with planning, is trying to learn from last year. And I think in my squash bed, instead of 9, I had 12, and I think it was just too much. I think they fought for nutrients and water, and although I got some great fruits, I didn't get as many as I have in the past, and not quite as big. So I've scaled this back to 3 again this year, because the next bed over is the big change for me. Also, last year I had, or this year, because we're still in this year, I had the peppers and the cukes sort of here, but that meant an extra path. So again, this is path, this is path. And I want to reduce how many paths I have, because obviously that's growing space. So I thought, well, I don't need a path between the squash because I literally don't go on their bed in the summer. I put tubes coming out of the soil and I lean over to water into the tubes, but I just don't go on the soil at all. So I thought, actually, if I bring them right down here, then this is my kind of permanent grass path. That will reduce the path and again, just increase the space for all the squash so that hopefully there's more nutrients available for them, more water available, and also just less of me having to be on the soil, because it even with my little cardboard paths, it massively compacts it. And this London clay soil it's hideous. It turns to concrete in the summer. It's vile stuff. Someone commented on my last video and said lovely soil, and I just thought, you want to come and try and work it. Lots and lots and lots of compost needed. So bed 3, now this is where we have the big change. This year's bed 4 becomes this year's bed 3, and it's my rows and rows and rows and rows and rows of beans. Like I say, beans are so important in my diet that they get a lot of space on the plot. So I had 3 double rows of climbing beans, or 6 rows of climbing beans if you like. I had that whole bed of rock and core beans behind. In front I had all the peas. Big change this year. So let me show you bed 3 and you won't see many beans. Where have all the beans gone, Vivi? So down at the bottom I've got the broad beans, which are growing away beautifully. When they come out, exactly as I did this year, they'll come out and the cocoa de pampol will go in. But instead of being at this end of the bed, where they got shaded by all the climbing beans, I brought them to the front. Remember, this is the south end, so all the light. I brought them to the front so that hopefully they'll do a little bit better. Then normally I would have a couple of rows of peas. I finally made the decision that although I love my fresh garden peas, the amount of space they take up for the yield, it's just not worth it. There's a possibility that if there's a tiny space somewhere, I may chuck a couple of them in just for the taste. But in terms of a veg to harvest, to store, to keep me going, it breaks my heart, but it's just not worth it. And this is what I mean about when I was saying about, you know, what yields well. I'm really sorry about this cough, excuse me. If this is just to supplement or just, you know, just for fun and enjoying the taste, go for it. But for me, this has now become, this is my supermarket. So I've had to have a, it's been interesting this year. I'll talk about it more in another video, but how it's changed my attitude to what I'm growing and how I grow things, because now it's like, it's serious. It's never serious, you know what I mean. Anyway, so back to the plan. So I've got rid of the peas, and I've got rid of all my rows of beans. They've all gone. They're going somewhere else. And instead, because the squash is another really, really good harvest for me, but they need space, what I'm going to plan this year, or this year coming, is I'm going to have 6 wigwams, quite hefty wigwams. So I don't know if any of you saw the bonfire video. I managed to scrounge some really long, quite straight, chunky trunks from the burn pile. So that's what they're for. So I'm going to focus on squash that I can climb. So I'll be doing the baby butternuts again from Shannon. Thank you, Shannon, because they were gorgeous, but give them lots more muck this time. But I might do some butternuts, I might do some of the citrine, some of the violina that way, but they're going to climb. And then the whole of this area is going to be underplanted with a brand new vegetable for me this year. I'm not going to tell you what it is yet. I'm really excited about it. I've got zero idea if it will work. You cannot get a seed for it. I've had to think outside of the box, but I'm really excited. I don't know anyone who grows it. I've spent a lot of time on the internet looking to find out other people who grow it, and I can't find anyone in the UK except for one very small specialist farmer who's just started it. I think it's this year or last year, but that's it in the UK. I can't find anything in Europe. We'll see. I can't wait to tell you. I'm so excited. Anyway, so that'll all be underplanted. But what are you going to do with your beans, Vivi? Because your beans are a staple. Well, you see these funny little squiggles here? These represent hoops and arches. Because it occurred to me that the space between my double rows of beans is completely wasted. I did manage to get a couple of pumpkins this year on the in-between space, but it was a real push. And in the other two rows where I also had pumpkins, they just didn't like it. So I've decided that I'm going to use my grass paths as the in-between bit for the rows, because that grass path is going to be there anyway. It's never going to go. And rather than having a path on the soil, double row that I can't get between, path on the soil, double row that I can't get between, that's a lot of wasted space. So the plan this year is to plant, instead of doing my beans like this, like I normally do, I'm going to plant them down the sides, the length of these beds, then put my bean poles in, and then to form the arches over the top, because rather than having them, normally I would have them as a triangle. Now that's fine if I don't want to walk, but if I want to walk, my head's not going to fit through. So I want the poles to stay straight, and then I can either lash a pole across the top square, or what I'm going to start doing is I'm going to start looking in skips and scrounging. My friend Jackie in Canada did it last year with hula hoops, cut down hula hoops. I think Rachel in Manchester did it with cut down water piping. So that's going to be a big change on my plot this year. I'm a bit excited and a bit freaked because I'm not very good with change, but I think it'd be really fun to, well, look, put it this way, it's going to open up nearly an entire bed for more growing for me. Yay! Obviously the plants in the sides of the beds, they're going to eat into the rows a little bit, but not hugely. So between bed 3 and 4 there'll be a tunnel of beans, and between bed 2 and 3 there'll be a tunnel of beans as well. I can't wait. I'm hoping it's going to turn into a bit of a summer Narnia with loads of kind of shady arches to hide under. The cats are going to love it, aren't they? So that's that's a really big change for me. I've never done it that way. We'll see if it works. And this new crop that I'm going to try growing, can't wait. And then over to bed 4, which is this year's bed 1, which is the one nearest the path. So very little change here. So in the first bed I'll have the parsnips and the calendula again, because they seem to work a treat together. The chickpeas, yes, I'm going to give the chickpeas another go, because year 1, fantastic harvest. This year, mice had the lot. What I'm thinking about doing differently with them is, where they had that massive second spurt of growth, I'm actually thinking if something similar happens, I might actually just cut the tops off so that all the energy goes into the pods that are already there, and hopefully they'll dry quicker and I can get them away from the mice quicker. I'm not sure yet. I might do half and half and see if it makes any difference. The 2 rows of main crop, 2 rows of new potatoes, and then the only difference is where I had the quinoa, which I eventually scrapped, and then the brassicas went in. I'll start with a nice big bed of rocking court again. That's that beautiful waxy yellow dwarf French bean, and then over here some fennel. So the other thing to consider is the winter garden. I've got into a little routine of it now, so I kind of know when things are going to be harvested, when I'm getting rid of things. But I always, as soon as the onions come out, brassicas go in. The rock and core tend to finish, they're kind of done by the middle of July. So again, once they all come out, boom, I'll put some more brassicas in. So I'll start my brassicas in about April, and then literally, as and when anything comes out, boom, 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 I start whacking my brassicas in. So, have a breath. That's my plan for this year. Coming. I can't wait. I love this moment where I can see it. I can see it in my mind's eye. I'm picturing myself on the summer solstice, just as I did this year, being in the garden at 7:30 in the morning, the blackbirds singing, doing a bit of water and the sound of the water in the tanks glugging and the warmth on the back of my neck and everything growing and becoming abundant, and just being excited for all those first nibbles of tomatoes and cucumbers. And having seen how the flint corn grew, what I realised is I love those tall plants. I love that kind of lushness. So having my little corridor of flint corn, which will give a really kind of a secluded little path behind it, and then hopefully having these corridors of arch, sort of, bean corridors, I think that's going to be gorgeous too. It may could be a complete disaster, I don't know. But if I don't try, I won't know. So, in summary, most of the varieties I'm going to grow will be the varieties I've been trying and testing over the last couple of years. Not much change. I think there may be a couple of bean swaps. I think the pea beans were they're a novelty, to be honest. I didn't get much from them, so I'm going to replace those with Soissons. I think it's Soissons is how it's pronounced, which is quite a big sort of meaty butter bean. But otherwise, in terms of varieties, not much change. In terms of layout of the plot, the biggest change I've ever done with these arch walkways, which I hope will be productive but also delightful. And then my two new things, which I'm not telling you about just yet. And no matter how much guessing you do, I'm not going to tell you yet either. Anyway, yay, I'm so excited. Can we start? Can we start? Can we start? Hold. There's no point starting anything. It's going to be cold for another 4.5 months. But listen, I hope you're all enjoying planning your gardens. I hope you're all beginning to feel that excitement. I hope you're all finding friends to swap seeds with, because this is the perfect time of year to do it. Everyone's gathered their seed. Give your friends a call, give them a little face ache or whatever you call it. See if you can do some swapping and have even more to choose from. Whatever you're up to with your planning, whatever stage you're at, have fun, dream, just dream of next summer and how gorgeous it's going to be. I hope so. I hope it's not going to be a wet one. I will catch up with you all. I'm so excited I can't speak. I will catch up with you all again really soon, I hope. But in the meantime, I'm going to say cheerio and take care. Happy planning.